Every level of comic book movie explained. Level 1. So bad, it's good. Movies that basically have no saving grace. They are undeniably terrible, to the point where you wonder why they were even made in the first place. They are funny, but not because they intend to be. They are funny because they try to sell you a story so stupid that you have no choice but to laugh at the effort. Some movies reinvent the source material, with a more realistic approach, a darker tone and a deeper message. Fantastic Four was not one of them. The movie introduces us to some of the most unlikable characters of all time. It's okay, you think. It's an origin story and they're young, they'll develop into characters we all know and love by the end of the movie, but no. They stay the same insufferable pricks for 1 hour and 40 minutes, with little to no character development. And don't even get me started on that Doctor Doom design. How do you mess up one of the coolest looking comic book characters of all time? Another one with a group of insufferable pricks, but this time it's different because they're meant to be insufferable. Amanda Waller forming a team of convicted criminals to use as an expendable unit for dangerous missions sounds interesting. Viola Davis as Amanda Waller, Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, Will Smith as Deadshot. Overall, an incredibly stacked cast, but you know where the movie fails? Every other aspect. It struggles to fit all the characters into the plot, leading to a bunch of side plots that go nowhere, characters stay shallow, the pacing is terrible, the editing is even worse, and somehow it makes a fairly simple plot hard to follow. In the end, they save the world, but you end up feeling nothing. It proves that just because the stakes are big, the emotions won't necessarily be. Another one of Sony's Spider-Man movies without Spider-Man. I don't know why they keep doing these. The movie doesn't even try to set up an interesting plot or compelling characters. Instead, it leans heavily on actresses being hot to carry the film. Everything that happens is explicitly explained, which leads to clunky, unnatural dialogue. At some point you stop watching a movie and it starts to feel like you are listening to a 12-year-old explain a movie they watched last week. If you watch any interviews with the cast, it's pretty clear that even they didn't care about the movie, so why should we? Here are some of the other movies that fit into this level. The list goes on and on, but there are 6 more levels we need to cover, so we move on. Level 2. I wish I could erase this from my memory and never watch it again. Some movies make you regret ever pressing play. They ruin characters you loved, crush your expectations, or just waste your time. Not that you had big expectations to begin with, but somehow they were still so bad you couldn't have possibly set your expectations that low. Following the success of the beloved Oscar-winning first film, the sequel was announced as a story exploring the relationship between Joker and Harley Quinn. Fans were excited, expecting a twisted crime couple story, something in the vein of Bonnie and Clyde or Natural Born Killers. Little did they know, the director had other ideas. It's not uncommon for a director to be at odds with their fanbase, but this was on a whole other level. Todd Phillips made an entire film just to deconstruct the character and remind fans that Joker isn't the cool literally me guy they made him out to be. Call me crazy, but I don't actually hate this idea. Even making it a musical could have worked if it had been executed with an ounce of passion. The writing was terrible, not just the dialogue but the entire script. The songs were so forgettable that after watching the movie, I couldn't even remember a single one, which kind of defeats the point of a musical, doesn't it? The cinematography and the performances by Joaquin Phoenix and Lady Gaga help you get through it. Barely. Without them, this movie would belong in level 1. The second film in DC Extended Universe. With desperate hopes of catching up to the MCU, DC rushed into a team-up movie featuring their biggest characters without properly setting them up. They tried to introduce a completely new Batman and establish his reasons for hating Superman, introduce Lex Luthor and his reasons for hating Superman, make Batman and Superman fight, and that fight, in a draw, introduce Doomsday, introduce Wonder Woman, and top it all off with a big boss battle where the heroes team up. All in a single movie. I don't even need to say it. It was a disaster. What else were they expecting? A team-up movie only works when the audience cares about the characters. And you care about the characters if you know them. The only one I knew was Superman, and even he wasn't all sympathetic after letting a courtroom full of people die just so he could aura farm. I have never seen a movie mess up 3 iconic villains in the same runtime. Not only do they look nothing like their comic book counterparts, but their characters are underdeveloped, their motivations are weak, and they don't even feel intimidating at all. The only reason to watch this movie might be the chemistry between Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone, but honestly, it's just not worth it. Just go watch a TikTok edit of the two and save yourself 2 hours. If you're looking for more comic book movies to stay far away from, these are a few of them. Now on to the next level. Level 3. You got what you expected. Are you happy? You were expecting these movies to be bad, and they were, so you're not that disappointed. You might even enjoy them if you manage to shut off your brain for most of the runtime. They are usually memorable for one or two absurd shots, and that's about it. These films are mostly the byproducts of disastrous production phases. Fights between directors and producers, ego clashes between actors, rushed timelines, or studio interference. An end product of a failed cinematic universe. With a lead actor wrapped in controversy after controversy, this movie was doomed from the start. To make things worse, the obviously rushed CGI made it nearly impossible to take it seriously. Yes, there were a few well-placed cameos and some genuinely solid performances from Michael Keaton as Batman, Sasha Calle as Supergirl, and Michael Shannon as Zod, but the end product still makes you question, did this movie even need to exist? Apparently, being the face of several action franchises wasn't enough for The Rock. He had to take on the role of the iconic Egyptian anti-hero Black Adam and turn him into a hero. Not only did he completely misunderstand the character, but he also made no effort to become the role. Like always, he just played himself. If you removed all the Black Adam scenes, the movie would probably improve, which says a lot about how good of a Black Adam movie it actually is. The side characters, especially Pierce Brosnan's Dr. Fate, are interesting, but they don't get nearly enough screen time to make up for everything else. In the end, it just feels like another movie made to boost The Rock's real-life brand. With Scarlett Johansson returning as Black Widow and Florence Pugh joining as her adoptive sister, there was a lot of excitement for this one. And honestly, it had potential, but it suffered heavily due to production issues during COVID-19 pandemic, delay after delay, rewrite after rewrite. What we ended up with was a movie that felt like a mashup of Hulk-bait ideas with little concern for coherence. The CGI was atrocious, and Taskmaster didn't live up to any of the hype. It's not a hated movie, but it's also not one people ever talk about. The only real takeaway was the introduction of Yelena Belova. These aren't terrible movies, but honestly, you almost definitely have better things to do with your time than watch them. Level 4. Not bad. These are the movies that sit right in the middle. They have just as many pros as cons, and depending on your personal preferences, they might even really connect with you. One of the most visually unique movies in the MCU, directed by Oscar-winning Chloe Zhao. The film tries to be both a deep character study and a big action blockbuster, but ends up being neither. It sets up conflicts between characters with weighty psychological themes, but before it can explore them truly, it turns into just another generic action movie. This might have worked better as a miniseries, with more time to properly introduce the characters and develop their motives. There's definitely an interesting story here, but as a movie, it's just an okay action flick with a somewhat interesting visual style. A perfect example of how one charismatic actor can carry an otherwise uninspired movie. Tom Hardy as Eddie Brock and the solid CGI are basically the only good things about this film. As the series goes on, it gets worse. Watch it if you love Tom Hardy and enjoy dumb, over-the-top action movies. Otherwise, maybe skip it. Bring back an iconic actor in a beloved role after a perfect retirement arc, just to throw him into a movie full of gimmicks and cameos. The film doesn't even really have a plot, it's held together by nostalgia, a few cheap laughs, and a truckload of fan service. I know some of you love this movie, but for the love of the god, try watching it with a clear mind, try to find one piece of genuinely good writing. Ryan Reynolds is, as always, funny as Deadpool, and Hugh Jackman, at this point, he's the Wolverine. But the standout performance of the film comes from someone else entirely. Emma Corrin as Cassandra Nova is the real saving grace here. She's fantastic. I just wish that instead of this cameo soup, we got a movie that actually explored Cassandra as a character, but what do I know? That probably wouldn't make as much money at the box office. You might have fun watching these, you might even love them, but I think they've got enough flaws for us to call them just okay. If you're enjoying this, hit the subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Now, let's keep going. It only gets better from here. Level 5. Good, but could have been better. These are solid movies, interesting characters, good plot and exciting action, but small issues hold them back from being true greats. Zack Snyder's take on Alan Moore's iconic comic book with the same name. Visually, it's striking. Snyder doesn't hold back on the grit or the violence of the source material, but what truly set Watchmen apart from other comics was its depth. It's a story filled with complex flawed characters that challenge the very concept of what it means to be a hero. Unsurprisingly, Snyder misses all of that. It's a good movie, and it definitely had potential to be one of the greats, if only it had embraced more of the comic's philosophical undertones. A movie that successfully blends superhero storytelling with political thriller elements. It features strong characters, a compelling plot, and most importantly, an iconic villain. It also has some of the most impressive action sequences in the entire MCU. I'm not exaggerating, the fight choreography on this one is really impressive. The cinematography suits the genre well and breaks free from the typical MCU color palette. But in the end, it suffers from being tied to a larger universe. Those obligations pull focus from the core story and lead to uneven pacing. A movie that perfectly understands not only the character, but the whole appeal of comic books. Audiences loved it for the same reason they loved comics. A light-hearted, hopeful and fun story. A relatable main character, lovable side characters, a memorable villain, and a constant undertone of optimism. Everything you could want from a Superman movie. It's not just a great Superman movie, it lays the foundation for an entire cinematic universe. And that's exactly what holds it back. While it tries to focus on Superman as a character, the number of side characters and the muddiness of subplots prevent it from being the perfect Superman movie. These are all good movies. We enjoyed watching them, but in the mountain of comic book films, they just aren't sitting at the very top. Level 6. I wish I could erase this from my memory and watch it again. These movies are so good that you would be willing to trade part of your memory just to experience them for the first time again. They either build beautifully on previous films or are crafted with a deep passion for both the source material and the art form. They make you feel things none of the previous levels could even dream of. You can't find a single mistake in these movies. X-Men movies have always been great at touching on real-life problems through the discrimination mutants face, but Days of Future Past takes it to another level. You see how something they can't control ruins their lives because people around them refuse to accept who they are. Mystique makes a mistake because she's a young mutant overflowing with hate toward a world that can't accept her. And that one mistake creates a butterfly effect that forces generations of mutants to live in fear of sentinels and mutant prisons. It all feels real, not just because it's depicted realistically, but because we have witnessed the foundations of this world through previous films. The opening scene sets the stakes sky high, showing how desperate these characters are, and their only solution is time travel. It's the best depiction of time travel in any comic book movie. This movie is perfect, no notes. If you haven't watched it yet, I highly recommend Rope Cut. A 3-hour-long, slow-paced movie about a young, edgy goth Batman. And you know what? It works. Matt Reeves perfectly captures dark, brooding atmosphere of Gotham. Robert Pattinson's portrayal of a young Bruce Wayne, broken, angry and lost, is flawless. This movie isn't carried by the ones that came before it. It carries itself. It's so visually stunning that you could pause at any frame and stare at it for half an hour without getting bored. Very excitedly waiting for the sequel. They teased Thanos since the very first Avengers. The hype was unreal, and somehow they topped it. That opening scene perfectly establishes just how powerful Thanos is, and you spend the entire runtime fearing him. This is the only movie where the Avengers truly feel cornered. You keep wondering how the hell are they going to get out of this, and in the end, they don't. They lose. Infinity War remains the most impressive MCU movie ever made, and I doubt even Doomsday will be able to top it. If you haven't watched any of these movies yet, go watch them right now. All of them are incredible, and you're missing out on some of the best entertainment out there. Level 7. This is cinema. These movies are the reason cinemas were invented. They are beyond perfect, elevating the entire genre by breaking the limits of what was thought possible. These are cinema. Superhero movies aren't just for kids. We all know that, but if someone claims they are, make them watch Logan. At this point, Logan feels like one of us. We have witnessed his entire story from the very beginning, and now we see a grumpy old man trying to connect with and protect his newly found daughter. It hits different. The emotional depth here rivals some of the greatest films of all time, and if you didn't cry by the end, you might not have a heart. This movie showed what can happen when a visionary director is given creative freedom, and it proved that an R rating can add real weight and maturity to comic book storytelling. Logan is the reason we are seeing more R-rated comic book adaptations today. This movie looks like a comic book come to life. Combining 3D animation with 2D frames was a genius move and completely revolutionized modern animation. It introduced general audiences to Miles Morales without undermining Peter Parker in any way. It's an origin story that feels both nostalgic and fresh. It also sets up perfect multiverse plots with instantly memorable side characters. Spider-Gwen, Spider-Noir, Penny Parker, Peter B. Parker, Peter Porker, all unforgettable. And the soundtrack, perfection. This movie was an instant masterpiece, the kind of lightning in a bottle moment we rarely see anymore. They hit every perfect note. Story, visuals, music, emotion, everything. An Oscar-winning comic book movie. For those who remember a time before, could you ever have imagined that? Not because comic book movies weren't deserving, but because the Academy never took them seriously. Yet, The Dark Knight shattered that prejudice. The direction is flawless, the pacing keeps you locked in so tightly that the whole movie feels like it's over in 30 minutes. Christian Bale delivers perfect Batman and Bruce Wayne, and Heath Ledger's Joker changed the way people saw the character, inspiring countless villains that followed. This movie changed the way people look at comic book films entirely. It doesn't matter if you like the genre or not, this movie is for you. These movies are the best of the best. When you watch them, something inside you changes. They didn't just affect individuals, they affected the entire film industry and inspired countless others. Watch them, even if you already have, watch them again. Thank you for watching my take on 7 levels of comic book movies, and if you made it this far, please consider subscribing. Let me know in the comments where you agree and where you don't. If this video does well, I'm planning to follow up with 7 levels of villains. Hopefully, see you in the next one.